Now we continue with the Bannies Awards nominations. We go towards the male side here a little bit, Bryson. Where do we want to start off here when it comes to some of the men's categories?
Well, let's go ahead and start with the men's team head coach of the year. That's where we started with the women. Let's start the same with the men. So the nominees for men's team head coach of the year are Gus Malzahn, football; Johnny Dawkins, men's basketball; Bryce Waller, men's golf; and John Roddick, men's tennis.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll go real quick here. Roddick obviously had a lot of injuries, kind of made a late run in men's tennis, got within a win away from making the NCAA tournament with a lot of youth. Really a bright future for the Big 12. Bryce Waller once again gets a couple players into the NCAA tournament with men's golf. Then you got Johnny Dawkins, who led the team to the NIT. I'm going to give you the Dawkins case here. He didn't have C.J. Walker pretty much for the whole year. Didn't have Darius Johnson for about 40% of the year. Had injuries before the year. Never had a full roster. And yet was able to manage a 19-win season and make the NIT and beat Florida in the NIT, get to the second round. That's my vote. I don't really think this should be close, but yet, as we have debated internally on the staff, based on our Slack conversations, which has gotten a little emotional with the voting, there's a big case being made for Gus Malzahn, who did win 9 games and get the American to the conference championship in football side. Give me your quick thoughts here, starting with you, Nick, on this category.
It's a tough one. Like you listed Coach Dawkins there. Another thing you should be added, he was able to recruit Taylor Hendricks, our first ever lottery pick. That should give him some points, in my opinion. With Gus Malzahn, not only did he lead him to 9 wins in the conference championship game, he did it with a lot of injuries, and he had some big wins over two ranked opponents in Tulane and Cincinnati. So they got the arguments there.
You also have the transfer portal case, though, to make with Gus Malzahn as well, because he did bring in John Rice Plumlee, Jason Johnson, Javon Baker, Kobe Hudson. You know, he just like Johnny Dawkins, both Gus and Dawkins have done pretty great jobs this
for sure
with the transfer.
Yeah. What's interesting, I think you could argue the men's basketball is basically similar to 2 years ago when football beat Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl, and Gus won the Bannies that year. I think you can make the case for Dawkins. The argument for Gus is he got him to the conference championship game, had played with 2 quarterbacks basically, get to the championship game. I would go Dawkins. Some would go with Gus. Some might perceive this. I mean, the thing that kind of has me against voting against Gus is the month of November was not very good for football.
Right.
But at the same time, they were within a win away of a New Year's Six bowl. I think the winner's going to –
yeah. They won that game. It'd probably be unanimous. Gus,
sure.
But.
I think the winner's going to come out of one of these two, but we'll see. Never know. Bryce Waller did get a couple golfers in. Tennis, we mentioned the rebuild there as well. Next category, Bryce.
Next up, we have the assistant coach of the year. We have 3 nominees here. First up, we have defensive coordinator of the football team, Travis Williams. For the baseball team, we have hitting coach who stayed on the staff despite the head coaching change, Ted Tom. And then with the men's basketball team, you have Coach Norris. So
Kevin Norris, Kevin Norris, former Miami Hurricane assistant there, helps with the guards, which obviously C.J. Kelly and Theo Horton, good production there. That's the case to be made there. Travis, obviously on the defensive side, reigning the defense coordinator, was the winner last year. And then Ted Tom, Nick, was the hitting coach for this historic UCF offense, which shattered the records for single-season home runs, single-game home runs. I mean, you name it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things from the baseball team you can complain about. Hitting is not one of them. That was their biggest strength this year. He was in charge of that. So there you go. That should give some. That's what you
need an idea we're voting for there, Teddy Tom.
To really put this into perspective, the previous home run record was sitting at about 78, I think is what it was. This UCF team finished with 109 home runs this year as a team. They're the power, the breakout in power we've seen in some of these hitters has been a sight to behold. And Ted Tom is the one responsible for those sorts of things. When you are able to stay on the staff after a head coaching change, it shows how invaluable you are. Darrell Wyatt back a few years ago, survived the head coaching change back then from Josh Heupel to Gus Malzahn because of how good those wide receiver groups are. And I think the same thing applies here. There is a reason that this UCF baseball team and Rich Wallace wanted to keep Ted Tom with them, and his expertise with this hitting coach. They want that power to continue going to the Big 12. It's just an asset this program really needs, and they can build off of going from a really good year from that perspective last year.
What is next?
All right, next up, we have Men's Breakout Athlete of the Year. From the football team, RJ Harvey. From the baseball team, catcher Andrew Sundin, catcher and designated hitter. From the men's golf team, we have Luis Carrera. And from the men's tennis team, we have Bogdan Pavel.
Well, RJ Harvey was big. I mean, obviously coming back from an injury, blossom. Some argued was maybe the best all-around running back on the roster, really outperformed Bowser. Some would argue that. On the football side, he was tremendous. Andrew Sundin continued his stellar play, added some power. What was it, Bryson? He went from 4 home runs last year to like 16 this year. It's incredible. 5 to 16 home runs. Really, if it wasn't for Ben McCabe, Andrew Sundin would have been the MVP of the team. Would probably be talking about player of the year. Might be talking about him for male athlete of the year. But you know, Ben McCabe. But he had an incredible season for this offense. Was a big part of it, and can always count on him. As Greg Lovelady used to say, you can get out of bed and get a couple of hits, right? So there. But Bryson, give us an idea about Luis Carrera for those that do not know.
So Luis Carrera ended up coming on to the scene a couple of years ago, transferred in, and he did not exactly have the best year in his first year as a transfer here. But through the offseason, he competed in the Latin American Amateur and really put everyone on notice. He had a really good performance there, and he took that momentum with him into the season where he ended up shooting a 72.60 scoring average, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That right there is one of the top 10 single season scoring averages in program history. The guy managed to bounce back and get the 6th lowest 71.21 scoring average right there. I mean, just one of the best seasons in men's golf history from a top end perspective. And he did that after bouncing back from, I would argue, a kind of a to be desired year from the year before that. He also got a win in the Hartford Hawks Invitational by about 5 strokes in what was one of UCF men's golf's best scoring performances of its program's history. So for history, that's the case there for one Luis Carrera. He also made the NCAA regional alongside Johnny Travale and did quite well there. Did better than him actually in that one. As for Bogdan Pavel, we've known him as a doubles player throughout his career. We've known him as a doubles player. He's been playing with Trey Hildebrand, gotten to rank as high as number 3 in the country at one point. This year, though, he really showed what he was capable of in singles play. He was in a team. I remember talking with him. He told me the freshman called him grandpa. He had to fill that leadership on that role on this team as the one senior on it. And he ended up taking that number 1 spot and doing quite well with it. He ended up doing quite well in singles play at singles play. And but he still didn't lax in doubles play. He partnered up with Leighton Cronje and they got to the NCAA men's doubles championship at the USDA national campus and managed to make it pretty solid. You know, they got a couple wins there. So Bogdan Pavel right there, solid breakout for him in the singles play department. And then of course we have Andrew, and then of course you mentioned Andrew Sundin. Nick, you got to see a few baseball games this year. What can you say about watching Andrew Sundin out there?
He was so good. Every time I was covering a game, it felt like I was always asking to talk to him. Simple as that. He had a great year. I don't know what else you guys kind of took it.
Pretty much, right? Yeah.
Had a great year.
Performed all the time. He's tremendous and could be the face of this program moving forward into the Big 12. All right, what's next, Bryson?
Next up, we have Men's Senior of the Year. Here we go. From the men's soccer team, we have Mauricio Villalobos. From the football team, we have Isaiah Bowser and Samuel Jackson. Two entries there for the football team. From the men's tennis team, Bogdan Pavel. From the baseball team, the new home run king, Ben McCabe. And from the men's golf team, Johnny Travali. So we mentioned Bogdan Pavel earlier. Men's freshman, all the freshmen on the team called him Grandpa. We mentioned him in the last award. So rewind, see what you did there. That's the case for Bogdan Pavel. But Eric, thoughts on Jackson and Bowser?
Well, I mean, Jackson was one of the leader on the offensive line. I'll never forget the Navy game. He was the one who would always take the tough questions, would be in the podium. Solid guy. Bowser, the tough guy, would do the little things out of the backfield. So I think, to me, those two football guys well represented, very, very legit as the seniors leaders there, without question. Big part of that. And then, Ben McCabe, Nick, speaks for itself. Historic year. Maybe the second greatest season any UCF baseball player offensively has ever had, behind only Chris Duffy 2010. Super valuable, to always a great guy to talk to, easy going to talk to, even with all the pressure, right? Is chasing the career home run record.
He was so calm. I was just saying I felt like I was always talking to Andrew Sundin. There's only one person I felt like I was asking to talk to more. That was him. But I think the thing that shows how good he was is just, I mean, look at the list. How many people named him as an All-American? Like, how many All-American lists did he get put on? It was like 3 or 4, right?
Right, very
almost all of them. I felt like every time I was opening up Instagram, I'm like, oh, cool, he got selected to another one. Just a great year. Not only one of the best seniors, one of the best players, period, of this year.
Let's just say that there's a reason that Eric and I rated him. It's up on the Banneret website now. There's a reason we ranked him among the top 50 athletes of all time. Did you see that?
For male athletes of the year, career-wise? Yeah, absolutely, top 50. And then Bryson, it seemed like every UCF men's soccer post game, a lot of times you'd be talking to the captain and Mr. Villalobos.
That indeed we did. Men's soccer, it was an unfortunate year for men's soccer. In a very supersized American, it was just a very tough go at it. But every time I would be at a game, we would see Mauricio Villalobos trot out there and answer questions like a champ. He was out on the pitch the entire a lot of the season. He was second on the team in minutes. He was out there all the time. He was tied for the team lead with Gino Vivi in assists with 5 of them. He even got a goal for himself that year, this season as well. So Mauricio Villalobos has always been a leader on this team. He's been captain for like 3 seasons now. It feels like he's been captain of this team for so long. And really, the fact that he held that title for so long, I think really shows his leadership abilities. And then on the golf team, we have Johnny Travali. He has been a pillar of consistency for this team. He has been to the NCAA regional. He's been to the NCAA regional now for several seasons in a row, whether it's with the team, for 3 seasons, whether it's with the team or individually. He has been at that NCAA regional, and he ended at his time at UCF. He has the lowest career scoring average in program history with 71.52 career scoring average. The men's golf might have gone through its struggles in getting to the NCAA regional over the course of the last couple of years, but Johnny Travali, he was there, whether it was an individual or with the team. He was there leading the team the entire way, and that is what a senior should do.
All right, what's next?
All right. Next up, we have men's freshman of the year. Well, considering this is going to be a very interesting award to talk about, because there's one guy on here that I think everybody's going to be looking at. But the nominees are: from the men's soccer team, goalkeeper Juan V. Munoz; from the football team, kicker Colton Boomer; from the men's tennis team, Yassine Delimi, and a team full of freshmen. Yassine Delimi gets the nomination there. From the baseball team, shortstop Drew Farrow; and from the men's basketball team, the lottery pick himself, Mr. Taylor Hendricks.
All right, well, we don't need to talk about Taylor Hendricks much on this particular category, because he's going to pop up again later on in more categories. So I think that speaks for itself. Obviously, the impact he's had on UCF basketball with the season there, helping him get to the NIT. Colton Boomer, big impact, really settling down that kicking situation for UCF football. I thought that was very important. Get some consistency out there. Drew Farrow had a one of the better freshman years for a baseball player. Unfortunately, now he's at Florida State. He's transferred out. But what was it, Bryson? Set the freshman record home runs for a shortstop, right?
Yes, he did. He did.
So he was tremendous there. Give me a couple quick words on the other freshmen there, Bryce.
The goalkeeping position at UCF men's soccer and women's soccer as well, but in men's soccer are both very hollow positions. It takes a high level of talent to get selected to be the starter for that team. And Juan V. Munoz, a freshman, ended up getting tabbed to the job. He started all 13 matches, played matches, and got 48 saves. Just, it was a tough go about it, but he really took one for the team right there, getting in there and manning the net for them at the men's soccer team. Then, of course, we have Yassine Delimi from the men's tennis team. He basically led the way for the freshmen. This was a team full of freshmen, and he led the way he had the best record among the freshmen for him, and it put in some very difficult and some very high pressure situations, playing kind of in the mid courts right there. So very well done out of Yassine Delimi, and honestly, I think that if Taylor Hendricks were not here, then this would be a very stacked award and very jostling for positions type.
Yeah, we have a feeling we know who's going to win this one. Let's move on. Let's move it on to the next category.
All right, next up, we have men's transfer of the year. From the baseball team, we have Najir Victor. From the men's basketball team, we have CJ Kelly. And then from the football team, we have 3 transfers from the football team: John Rice Plumlee, Jason Johnson, and Javon Baker.
Obviously, we'll start with the football guys. I mean, JRP is in this unique category. He also comes up a lot in this portion. Football and baseball, his contributions there. But Nick, Najir Victor, was one of the few bright spots in the pitching staff. Mm-hmm. Kind of established himself as the year went on to one of the more important guys coming out of the bullpen in a high leverage situation there.
Yeah, he was really reliable. Every time we brought him out, I was a little more comfortable. He was very good at getting us out of bad situations. He was able to settle down games where we were maybe struggling. He was the kind of pitcher that I wished we had more of this season. That's all I'll say.
Yes, I think you speak for a lot of people there. Bryson, go through the rest of the nominees there.
So you mentioned John Rice Plumlee, Jason Johnson from the football team. He ended up he ended up coming in, and he's the type of tackler that I honestly think we haven't seen at UCF for a very long time. He had 129 tackles this year. That's a single season number in the tackles I haven't seen in a good bit here at UCF.
Was probably the best defensive player, really, consistency-wise, on that roster. At the end of the day, defensively.
Oh yeah, and considering linebacker is a very big position at UCF, I mean, he really filled that adverb.
Right, that was a big question mark going into the season. Absolutely.
Yes. Then you have Javon Baker, and for me, I think the big standout moment for Javon this year, 56 receptions for 796 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think the big thing for him was that one catch that he had in the War on I-4. I still remember that one that helped open the door for the Holy Holler on that one drop.
I would argue it's actually a better catch and a more important catch than the Holler one, because without that catch, the Holler play doesn't happen. Plus, UCF was in position there anyway. But yeah, that was impressive. Yeah, big catch.
But yeah, he ended up leading the team there. But he really was ended up becoming a team leader in that first year in that first season when it comes to receiving yards. He even he ended up outdoing Ryan O'Keefe in that department. So very key transfer there for the football team. And then we have CJ Kelly. I mean, in a roster that was full of transfers, we thought that the guards were looking pretty solid, but then Darius Johnson got hurt, and we see CJ Kelly just absolutely go ham. We saw him get 30 points against East Carolina, Florida. That Florida NIT match just absolutely killed.
Well, go back to the SMU match in the game. I keep calling it match. Jeez, quarterfinal match, first round against in the American, where the offense went through him. He ran the offense. He was not a point guard when he came here. He kind of converted into one because of the injury to Darius Johnson, Johnny Dawkins said, so he could play the point and play the two by the time he was down here, and he was as clutch as it gets. I think he was arguably, at times, the best player on the court, definitely a second best player. He was an unsung hero for this basketball team, no doubt.
All right. So there we go. So that
you got none of these guys, by the way, played two sports like John Rice Plumlee, which we'll get into more as this develops.
Next up to our next award, we have the men's game of the year. This is another one where we kind of have a favorite emerging, but there have been some really good games out of the men's teams this year. From the football team, we have the Cincinnati homecoming win. Also from football, the Tulane win, the Tulane victory. From the baseball team, you have their first game of their sweep against Clemson, where they won 4-2. Then also from baseball, you had the 8 home run slugfest of North Florida, where they broke the team record right there. They broke the team home run record in that game right there. And then men's basketball, you have the double overtime thriller against Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers.
Nick, you were at the baseball game against North Florida, where they set the record for single season home runs and the individual home run record.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thought? What do you reflect from that game?
The most fun I've ever had at a UCF baseball game. It was nonstop entertainment. I was watching. I remember we were texting. We were like, "Oh my gosh, they could break this record. Oh hey, they broke the record. Oh wait, they can break another one." It was just constant action. It was fun. It was a game I was so happy that I got to be at. Simple as that.
Meanwhile, they also had that game 1 against Clemson, though. I mean, look, in the baseball season, that was really, really rough. That sweep against Clemson, I think, really put a lot of wind in this baseball team's sails. And it all started with that game 1. UCF gets up ahead. It gets up ahead in the second inning, 2-0. Clemson's able to make their way back with a run in the third and then a run in the fifth. And then in the top of the 9th inning, UCF ends up getting to get.
Well, I remember the game got suspended to the next day because of weather.
Yes.
So they kept off in the 9th inning. UCF Plumlee led off that inning. They would come back and win that game. They would score 2 in that inning, win it 4-2, and set the tone for a sweep over Clemson, which we thought was going to take this team off to a special, different year. Unfortunately, that was not the case.
That's
now football.
It was quite the game.
And it led to Clemson's coach. Then it led to Clemson's coach calling us mouthy and complaining.
Coach Bakich, about how they ran over the Clemson people. Couple football games of note there. You mentioned Cincinnati. That was a big game. People wondered, hey, they had just lost to East Carolina recently before that, a couple weeks, and Cincinnati was the ranked team. If you lose this game, you're pretty much out of the race in the American, and where is this program and all that. JRP gets hurt, gets a concussion basically. Mikey King comes in relief, plays well. UCF scores in the final seconds, pulls off an incredible win against Cincinnati. Great game at the bounce house for sure. Then UCF comes back to later in the season to Tulane. JRP returns as the starter, runs all over Tulane to win that game. And I really thought at that point, this is the team to beat in the American. Unfortunately, that would not be the case with their following performances. But those 2 football games, certainly the memorable games for UCF in 2022 in their final year, the American. That Cincinnati game, that place was rocking at the bounce house for sure against the Cincinnati team that was a rival, considering Luke Fickell and those guys were kind of at the really giving UCF fits. So that was just, but let's be real. The game of the year in the men's side, you got to go to men's hoops, right? Like the Memphis, again, we say UCF Memphis, we're going to miss having these Memphis games in various sports because they provide drama and excitement. And boy, this men's basketball game, where were you? I will ask both of you, where were you when this game took place? And what do you remember from it?
We were there. We were there together. That was and I also remember that was my first week with the Banneret.
Right. Is that right, Bryson? You and Nick were together.
That's right.
In the media section, right? Wow.
That's right. We were there. It was I'll tell you what, the environment in the Edition Arena. That was one of the best environments I've seen for a basketball game. I mean, Memphis is a great I think this was really a coming out party for this UCF men's basketball team that I don't think a lot of us really gave a lot of like high expectations towards because of how much turnover they had. They may have had that Oklahoma State win, but they had CJ Walker for that game. For this one, they didn't have CJ Walker. They didn't even have Darius Johnson either for this one. Darius Johnson was injured coming into that game. They didn't have either one of those returning players. So this game was basically won by returner Ty Freeman and then everybody else that was brand new to the stage. Ethel Horton, Brandon Suggs, Jalen Young, Taylor Hendricks, Lahat Tune. And they had to just go all out for this. It was close the entire way through. UCF gets the edge at the end of the first half. Memphis gets it an edge and ties it gets the edge in the second one to tie it. You tie it. Both teams only get 9 points in the first overtime. The defense absolutely on display, and then you have the shootout that was that second overtime with UCF barely getting ahead by 3 points in order to take the win. I mean, oh man, I have never seen a double overtime basketball game in person before, and so to see that happen right before my eyes at Edition Financial Arena, that was an experience to be had.
That was my second ever game working with the Banneret. I'm like, oh my gosh, is it always going to be like this? And while it's never been that crazy, that's still one of my greatest memories and one of the funnest things I ever got to go to. And I hope to see more games like it. But let's move on. What's the next category?
It was always going to be like this, and I feel like you should probably uptake your heart palpitation medication right there. Eric, what do you think about that? What do you think about the Memphis game from your perspective on it?
I will never forget. You guys were there. The scoreboard or the score confusion, where they had the wrong score in the table or something. There was a big back and forth. I'm listening to Mark Daniels on the call, and he is yelling like it's not right. He keeps track of the score. It looked like he was ready to fight somebody. It was chaotic. And they're like, wait, are they going to take a point away from UCF? They're not going to give them that point. They finally figured it out. They gave UCF the point. But UCF was shorthanded, as you mentioned, Bryson. What a great game. Maybe one of the best games ever played in that arena. Memorable game. The highlight of the men's ships, one of the highlights there. To some extent, winning that game set them up for failure because, I think at that point, there was conversation of, hey, maybe we can make the NCAA tournament at that point. Maybe we're, there were, I think, a last 4 in at that point. So in a way, I think that skyrocketed the expectations that maybe were not realistic considering the injuries to Michael Durr and all that. But man, what a fun night of basketball. And I think as I told you guys afterwards, this is what it's going to be like in the Big 12 on a nightly basis. So it's going to be wild. Hopefully fans are ready for that. But what a memorable game. What a memorable game. All right, next game.
All right, next award, we have the Men's Individual Performance of the Year. The nominees are John Rice Plumlee against Tulane, Taylor Hendricks versus Oklahoma State, CJ Kelly versus East Carolina. From the baseball team, Lex Bodeker versus North Florida, 3 home runs in that game. And then for men's golf, Luis Carrera and the Hartford Hawks Invitational.
Well, John Rice Plumlee ran all over Tulane to the point where if he was healthy in the championship game, he couldn't run in the second meeting, the championship game against Tulane versus the first meeting. If he was healthy the second time, the thinking was, I think UCF wins that game, but he wasn't. But he ran all over Tulane. They had no answers for him. It's his best game of the year. And it was tremendous. Like UCF didn't really have to throw the ball that much in that ball game because they just had no answer for him. And then the Oklahoma State game, that was kind of when we said, hey, this Taylor Hendricks kid's legit. He's the truth. He's real. Because Oklahoma State had a big man of their own in Cisse that was really good. And Hendricks led that comeback. UCF was down double digits, came back, won the game in overtime. It was a big part of that. CJ Kelly was fantastic in the ECU game, took over that game, got hot, scored 30 points to help them win that game up in against the Pirates. Nick, you were there for the Lex Bodeker game against UNF. Describe that Lex Bodeker performance.
I don't want to say, by the time he hit the third one, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't surprised anymore. He was just so dominant that game. But at the same time, it's just like, it is surprising because it's like, I mean, it's hitting a home run is one of the hardest things to do in sports. To do it 3 times is just incredible. And I think even he had lost for words when we asked him about it after the game. Like, he had trouble just describing it. Even he couldn't believe it.
It was a nice
tied the single game record, right? Tied the single game record.
He tied the single game record
as well. 3 homers. Part of a night where
UCF game record and would eventually be a key contributor in tying the overall, or excuse me,
broke the single game team record, and of course also broking the single season record as well. Talk about Bryson, the Carrera individual performance.
So we mentioned Carrera earlier, breakout year for him, but I would argue that from a UCF perspective, because he did have that Latin American amateur performance behind him. As far as a UCF performance goes, his coming out party was the Hartford Hawks Invitational. UCF has been playing in that Invitational for years now and has quite thoroughly dominated in it. But Luis Carrera came in there and he ended up shooting a 16 under par 200 in order to win that invitational. I'm pretty sure that's like right there with some of the best 54-hole performances in UCF history right there. That ties actually for the lowest 54-hole score performance right there. Luis Carrera's 16 under par 200 to win that game. He won by 5 strokes, 16 under par. So in a tournament where UCF just thoroughly dominated, Luis Carrera just dominated the entire field statistically as well. So I would argue one of his most defining performances here in his 2 seasons with UCF. But we have one more men's basketball performance to talk about. Eric, CJ Kelly's 30-point game.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. He took over that ECU game, got hot, scored 30 points. Really was the difference there to them beating the East Carolina and winning that game. So that was a tremendous performance there. Let's go to the next category.
Next up, male athlete of the year. This is a very, very, honestly, Eric and I were talking about this before the show, that this is one of the more stacked male athlete of the year categories that I think that we've had in a while for a couple of reasons, but we'll get to it. So the nominees are, for the men's soccer team, Luca Dorado. From the football team and the baseball team, John Rice Plumlee. For the men's basketball team, Taylor Hendricks. From the baseball team, Ben McCabe. From the men's tennis team, Bogdan Pavel. And for the men's golf team, Luis Carrera. We mentioned Luis Carrera and Bogdan Pavel several times throughout the show. I think we've really kind of gone through their stories to this point, but we've really been saving him for this moment. So, Eric, tell us about Taylor Hendricks.
Historic freshman, obviously could do it all, could shoot from the perimeter, score from the field. Best pro prospect. Think of how many pro prospects we saw at the UCF games this year. I remember the Houston game with Jarris Walker and Hendricks. As it turns out, we got to see 2 top 10 picks play on that court, plus Marcus Sasser for Houston was a 25th pick in the draft. But the guy, easygoing, had some of the best blocks of the year, which, talk about play of the year, we'll get to with his block against Florida, but he had a great block against Wichita State to win a game, help win a game. Great, good rebounder, could score, could be a double-double guy, could score from a lot of places. The best freshman UCF basketball player probably ever is really what his legacy, and his legacy is still to be determined. He's the first UCF player ever to be drafted in the first round, first UCF basketball player to be drafted in the lottery. That's where his legacy will go moving forward as he's with the Utah Jazz. We'll see how his pro career is, but he has certainly set a standard there to help UCF basketball, maybe open some doors for future recruits to come here because, hey, I can come to UCF and be a lottery guy. Again, help them get to the NIT and postseason, which is interesting about this category because you got John Rice Plumlee, who played both football and baseball, was the quarterback on a UCF team that went to a bowl game, won 9 games, he started the majority of those games, was the leading, set the school record for single season rushing for a quarterback. then comes over and wins the starting center field job and is the center fielder the whole year and has a strong year for this baseball team, part of this historic offense on the baseball side. How many people could say that? That's tremendous. But then you got Ben McCabe, who was an All-American, second best season ever by any UCF baseball player, 19 home runs, too short from Chris Duffy's record in 2010, set the career home run record. And what's fascinating is he's actually the most decorated player of this whole nominees here. He's the only All-American of these candidates, which people may not remember that. So it's so fascinating because Hendricks is going to get a lot of votes and might win this because of recency bias. The NFL, the NBA draft, I think will influence a lot of that. But I will remind people he did not necessarily win the rookie. He didn't even win the Rookie of the Year in the American, a freshman. That went to Walker. I know people were upset about it. They felt he got robbed. Whatever. You saw why Walker got, he was pretty good too. But the one thing that's interesting about McCabe is he's the All-American. And then Luca Dorado was the goal scorer for this men's soccer team. And if they would have had a better season, he would be talked about for Male Athlete of the Year. Let me ask you this, Nick. Give me your thoughts on McCabe and Plumlee, because you saw Plumlee from the baseball perspective and actually saw him as well playing quarterback. And then obviously McCabe.
Well, with JRP, I mean, I think the fact that he was a huge star on two different teams, like I know you think Taylor Hendricks is going to get it, but I think the fact that JRP was a huge factor on two teams could give him some points for our fans. Watching him in baseball, like I would argue he had more impact on the baseball team than he did on the football team. I'm trying to remember his exact stat, but I'm pretty sure he had an over 300 batting average. He had some clutch hits, and he was one of the better offensive players. And every time he got on the base, I felt very comfortable because we know he's fast. He was a guy you could rely on stealing some bases, and not to mention when he was in the outfield, he made some incredible catches. Ones I can't describe it, and if I tried to, I wouldn't be doing them justice. All I can say is go look him up. But the best baseball player was Ben McCabe, and we're talking about drafting. The MLB draft's coming up soon. I'm expecting to hear that man's name get called soon. I think he'll be where that'll be. I don't know if I can predict that. Go ahead.
One other factor from Ben McCabe that I think is overlooked is he came back to the catcher position after not really playing catcher a lot the previous season because of an injury. The injury allowed it still. He was able to hit. He was still able to do that, but he was not able to catch. And so he comes back to catching for the first time in a good while. And he was ranked as one of the top catchers in collegiate baseball by D1 baseball. I think it was at number 5 at one point, number 5 catcher in the country, something like that. And in a team of home run hitters, Ben McCabe was the home run hitter of home run hitters to the point where he is now the new all-time home run king. And just so everyone is, and just to dispel the argument of, oh, he had an extra season because of the COVID year. If you eliminate the COVID year, he still would have won it. He still would have been the home run king by like 4, right? Like 4. He still would have like convincingly beaten Chris Duffy in terms of home runs. So
I think this is a fascinating debate here because you have Hendricks, probably, is the best talent, team success. I mean, how do the fans, some people think, like I do, that the NIT, that is team success. 19 wins NIT. Some look at it as a disappointment. I don't know. Then you've got JRP, helped UCF to a bowl game. You have him winning record with baseball, but now no postseason there. Dorado, Bryson, was by 11 goals among the nation's leaders. He would probably be the front runner for this if men's soccer would have had a better year. But as you mentioned earlier, at a supersized American conference, a great way to describe it, was the top 3 league in the sport, and they just they were just not consistent enough. They didn't make the NCAA. But you look at the faces for the Sun Belt, and yes, I said Sun Belt for men's soccer because they're going to get overlooked. And we saw this even over the weekend while everybody was celebrating the midnight to the Big 12. By the way, men's soccer's going to the Sun Belt. They announced they tweeted that out on Saturday. Whoops. It's going to get some used to. But he's going to be the face for this program. But that's what's so fascinating about this. McCabe and Dorado, I would argue, had the two best individual seasons. Plus, from that standpoint, or you could even make the case if it's not those two, the other one who had a great individual season from the nominees here was a Luis Carrera, and Pavel also had great individual. But the problem is their teams weren't as successful. So it's a fascinating category because the team success maybe not up to par. So how do you evaluate this? But then you have Hendricks, who makes history by being drafted in the lottery, which goes in his favor, whereas Ben McCabe will probably get drafted, but he's not going to get drafted nowhere near where Hendricks is. This is such a facet. This is the most compelling male athlete of the year that we've had here at the Bannies, to be honest with you, in a while. I really do believe that. I think it's a fascinating one. I could see 3-4 guys getting votes very easily on this. I'm really curious where the fans will go with this. Probably Hendricks because of the recency bias, but I don't think it's no pun intended here. I don't think this is a slam dunk by Hendricks to win this.
Oh, Eric.
All right, move on. Next time.
Next up, we have the men's play of the year. We split this. This play of the year is usually a unisex award, but this year we decided to split it up because there are just so many different plays from both the men's and the women's side to honor. So here we go. First up, we have John Rice Plumlee's touchdown run versus Tulane. Then from the baseball team, John Rice Plumlee again robbing a home run against Clemson.
How many athletes could say make top plays for two different sports?
Then we have Taylor Hendricks' block against Florida in the NIT game. Luca Dorado's goal against in UCF men's soccer is one of the more defining victories of the season for them against Charlotte. And then we have the Holy Holler against USF in the war on I-4 that clinched them the game.
Nick, what's your thoughts here? I feel like the Holy Holler is going to win this. This is going to win the fan vote, I would imagine. This is probably going to win within the staff. Is that where you're going with this too? Give me your thoughts on this category.
Yeah, that is where I'm going. Part of that is probably because I was there live, and I will never forget my reaction of going like,
there you go. That helps.
What are you doing? Why are you throwing that? Oh my God, he overthrew him. Wait, did he catch that? Oh my God. I literally remember my reaction. It's an incredible catch. It won them their rivalry game. It allowed me to walk out of the stadium acting like Aaron Rodgers when he scored that touchdown on the Bears, when he was screaming, "We own you." I got to be that when I was leaving Raymond James Stadium. And it's probably one of the most electric, impressive, and iconic plays that you'll ever see from the UCF football team. And because of that, as well as the high profileness of it, considering it is a football play, I think that it will win it, but that I don't think that should be used to disrespect some of the other plays on this list. I mean, go back and watch that Taylor Hendricks block. That's just incredible.
Amazing.
Go and look at go and look at that JRP touchdown run. Also incredible. Or his catch. All incredible. These are all great plays. It's just that one is just so much hype. It's just on a higher profile, and in my mind, just a little more impressive because, I mean, if that thrower, his foot is just an inch off, that's not a touchdown. And because of that, I think that's why I'm picking it, and I think that's why most people are going to pick it too.
I know you mentioned it earlier in the show, Eric, that Javon Baker's catch might have been the more crucial play of that drive, but I honestly think that the most athletic play, the Holy Holler, I think is still the more athletic play of the two, because you had to have, there were two things that Alec Holler had to do there. There was the one-handed catch that was going out of bounds, and then he had to be able to just drag his toes in bounds in order for it to be a touchdown. And that was so close from being ruled an incomplete pass because his knee was so close to hitting the ground out of bounds. I mean, say what you will about that Javon Baker catch, but the Holy Holler, I think, was just a more athletic play of the two. And like Nick said, no disrespect to all the other catches. I mean, John Rice Plumlee, he got 2 plays on here. I think that's an honor in and of itself. But Taylor Hendricks' block helped them win that game in the NIT. Luca Dorado, I think that Luca Dorado, that was like beauty of a goal to win to that helped them get ahead in that game against Charlotte. That really put some wind, I think, in the UCF men's soccer sails. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to it didn't lead to much in the games ahead. But that one game and that one play, that one moment, Luca Dorado, just absolute beauty in the game of soccer. So I think this is another really, I want to say compelling in the sense that these plays are all very compelling and we can only do so much justice. So fans, be sure to go and click the links below in the section on men's play of the year and watch these plays for yourself before making the decision. Don't just let the high profileness of the Holy Holler be your deciding factor, and be sure to watch these plays for yourself before you decide.
All right, what's next category?
All right, next up we have men's team of the year. This is a 2-horse race here. It's between football and men's basketball. It's
simple.
It's a high profile
right.
every year. So
yep.
who is it this year?
So I will make the case for basketball because I know I think Nick, let me just say this, Nick. Are you leaning? You're on the football side on this?
I'm split. I really don't know which one I want to pick.
Bryson, have you made a decision yet?
Yes, I have. I think I am going to be on the men's basketball side, and the reason that I am is because of the fact that they had to change, is because of the changeover. There were barely any holdovers from last year's roster, and the ones that were injured. Darius Johnson and CJ Walker were injured for some portion, if not a lot, of the year. So to see this men's basketball team that would literally just came together for the most part that off season, do as well as they did, make it to the postseason, the NIT, and beat Florida. That's their Gasparilla Bowl moment right there. That's their Gasparilla Bowl moment. They beat Florida in the NIT. They had the double overtime victory against Memphis. I mean, I know that you said that game inflated our expectations, but there's a reason those expectations were inflated because they beat a ranked team that was coached by Penny Hardaway without Darius Johnson or CJ Walker, and Michael Durr, who we all thought would be very, very key and necessary for UCF men's basketball to be even competent this year. So to see them get that win against such a great team without them was the thought of going through everybody's mind is, oh my gosh, if this is what we can do without them, what can we do with them? So I think that with all those factors, the turnovers, the lack of holdovers, the success that this team was able to sustain despite all that, I think that it's the ones that deserve the win there.
Well, I would vote men's basketball too. And here's the thing, right? Because the argument is, well, they didn't finish well. They didn't make the NCAAs. Well, you know what? Football didn't make the New Year's Six, didn't win a conference title either. And they didn't finish well either. When you look back in November, losing to Navy at home with a chance to really, all they had to do was beat Navy in South Florida. They're hosting the conference championship game. They didn't do that. They lost at East Carolina in a game where if they win, more than likely they host a game day. That didn't happen. They lose at Tulane. If they win that, they're playing New Year's Six. None of that happened for football. Yet, for whatever reason, we have some, and I think it's deemed basketball is a little more of a disappointment, even though they made the NIT and did beat Florida there. It really comes down to how you value the NIT and how do you value the football in 9-win season. Again, this is a hot topic internally. I know that because the guys, there's disagreements within the staff, and I'm sure fans will disagree with that as well. I'm really interested to see about this, how this vote turns out. If you're making the case for football, Nick, what's your case for football?
That they did manage to get to the conference championship game, and you could argue they could have won that if it was not for injuries. Yes, they had some big losses, but they also had some big wins. They beat not one, but two ranked teams in Cincinnati and Tulane. They were ranked at certain points of this year. And I don't know. The way I just see it is like you can view both teams the same way. They could have done so much more, but they were hampered by injuries.
Now you do make a case. The ranking wins does value there, so we'll see. We'll see what the fans decide. We'll see how this votes turns out. This is fascinating. Probably the most even matchup in our years of doing the Bannies for male team athlete of the year. This is the only other one I can think of that was difficult was the year that men's basketball won the team of the year when they made the Final Four in the NIT. They edged out baseball, who won the conference regular season title in 2017. Little did we know that would be the last best shot baseball would ever have to win this Banny Award. Anyway, moving on. Next topic.
All right. Next up, we have the alumni of the year. We always like to spotlight our alumni, UCF alumni at the Banneret. And so we always make sure we keep an eye on what they do in the professional sports world. And we give an award to those that have had standout performances in their respective sports, whether it is as a player or a coach. And we have a very nice list for you all this season. So here we go. We have Ben Lively, who managed to make an MLB comeback and make a start with the Cincinnati Reds. We have Aaliyah White, a former UCF softball pitcher who is now a pitching coach with North Georgia, that won the D2 national championship this year. We have Maddie Rogers, an Olympic weightlifter who continues to go on the weightlifting circuit and continues winning medals over there. Dylan Moore got himself a sweet new contract with the Seattle Mariners and was a part of their run in the MLB playoffs, first time in a while that they've made it there. Richie Grant in the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL, making his name there. Latavius Murray continues in an NFL where running back careers are so short. He continues to hang on going with the Saints, and then get signed later. The length of his career is amazing, and he got inducted into the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame. I mean, I didn't think we'd have a UCF Hall of Famer in an alumni of the year, but look at that. We have Gabe Davis. His achievements with the Buffalo Bills need no introduction right there. And then Sean Johnson, who has now has a deal with Toronto FC, and he is currently playing with Team USA in the CONCACAF Gold Cup. It's a stacked list.
Well, not only that, remember last November, Sean Johnson was on the U.S. national team roster that was in the World Cup in Qatar. First UCF alum to ever be part of a World Cup on the men's side. That's why he has my vote. I have a feeling he's the favorite to win this. Nick, anything you want to add here to any of the categories before we move on?
I mean, you kind of nailed it there. He has my vote too, because he didn't play in the World Cup, but it's the World Cup. It's where the best of the best go. And just to get there is a huge achievement and something a lot of guys take pride in. And I followed the U.S. national team very religiously. And I remember a lot of people who didn't even think he would be on it. We all thought it was going to be Zach Steffen, but he makes it. And then afterwards, he still goes. I mean, just a few days ago before we were recording this, he recorded a shutout in the Gold Cup, and tonight they just won 6-0, so they're moving on. So he keeps showing up. I mean, he's at it. How old is he? He's like mid-30s, right?
He's been playing in the MLS for
early mid-30s, right?
Yeah, he's at an age where
14th season in the MLS, yeah.
Right. Well, he's at an age where a lot of guys wouldn't be given the time of day by the national team, but he keeps going because he's just so talented. But
34. He's 34.
He's 34. Yeah, a lot of guys their national team career is over by that age. He's still going, and it looks like he's still got a lot of years left in him. And it's just the fact that he was good enough to be selected at the World Cup. Who knows if we ever see something like that again? That's why he's got my vote.
You can make the argument from a UCF soccer alum, him and Winston DeBose, UCF Athletic Hall of Famer, who's also in the Florida Sports Hall of Fame, probably the two best pro careers coming out of UCF from a soccer standpoint, from what they've accomplished internationally and professionally. It's a little tease here. We're doing the male top 100 rankings list right now on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Sean Johnson is going to be up there. You'll see. You might be surprised where he's ranked, but what he's accomplished here is amazing. His MLS career is tremendous. He won an MLS Cup a couple years ago with New York, not having the success this year at Toronto, but you make a World Cup roster. Hello, on the men's side. We take that for granted on the women's side because the greats like Michelle Akers has been there a bunch of times for the U.S. national team. Even this year's Women's World Cup, UCF alums are well represented with Kanya Plummer for the Jamaican national team, Kathy Sousa on the Brazilian national team, even Coach Shahadak on the U.S. national team staff, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have that on the men's side. So I think Sean Johnson, tremendous there. And also, I would argue right now, and see if you guys agree, disagree with this. Richie Grant right now is the best UCF football player that's playing in the NFL. Agree, disagree?
I think a lot of people would argue Gabe Davis, but if you look at the past season, yeah, no, I agree with you. Richie Grant had the better career. Gabe Davis kind of just took a step back. I'm hoping
Better season, yeah.
I'm hoping he bounces back, but
yeah.
I also think Richie Grant is due for a big breakout season this next year. So I'll be interested to see what he does.
I think I would agree with you on that. Gabe Davis, I think a big thing with him is that Gabe really got a lot of buzz after his record-breaking playoff game, 4 touchdowns.
100%. 100%. That's what it is.
Which is a really great game, by the way. Like, really, really great game. But you can also kind of factor in that he really took advantage of a bad pass defense in that one.
He beat up on Mike Hughes, or buddy, teammate there, UCF. Holy mackerel. That was a couple years ago, by the way, that Chiefs game.
Yes, exactly. And so this year, so this past NFL season, it looked like he seemed to kind of take a step back from that perspective. And so this look at Richie Grant kind of take advantage of that. 123 tackles, 70 of them on his own, 2 interceptions. I mean, look, Gabe Davis may be on the more successful team in the Buffalo Bills, but the Richie Grant, I think, is going to be one of the reasons that the Atlanta Falcons could come back and really
win, and might be and they could be the favorites in the NFC South. Sorry, Nick. I know, I like the Bucks. You're a Bucks fan, but it's a kind of a rebuild. It looks like in Tampa Bay. He could be a big part of that Falcon team there. Again, top 100 male athletes going on right now on blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can make the case Richie Grant's the greatest defensive back in UCF football history when it's all said and done. That's how. I mean, he's off to a fantastic. I think there's some Pro Bowls ahead of him. Anyway, we that's our alumni conversation. And by the way, shout out to Aaliyah White, pitching coach, North Georgia, win the national title. That's a good start to a coaching career. Her and Chad Mottola, who's been previously nominated in this category, who probably should be nominated here, could be nominated next year, depending how the Rays finish this year. Mottola's got the top offense in Major League Baseball, but Aaliyah White led North Georgia, one of the best pitching staffs in the country, to a national title. All right, Bryson, what's next?
All right, next up, we have the comeback player of the year. We always like to spotlight players who have had to overcome adversity in order to succeed in UCF sports. So here we go. We have RJ Harvey, who ever since he arrived at UCF, it feels like he's been recovering from injury, and he finally had his breakout season this year with the football team. For the women's soccer team, you have Mia Asenjo, who was out her entire true freshman season. She had to take a medical red shirt, and she went on to be named to the all-conference rookie team in the Americans. For the women's tennis team, you have Anique Kattenberg. Anique Kattenberg injured her leg early on last year and had not seen game action for a very long time until her team needed her to step up when everyone else on the team got hurt. She took up the court number 6 spot and did extremely well to help earn some points for the women's tennis team to keep them above 500. 500. You have Bogdan Pavel, who had a wrist injury this fall and came back to have it one of his best singles dual match seasons and get back to the NCAA men's doubles championship with a new partner in Leighton Cronji. And then you have the baseball team's Nick Romano, who has been out a majority of the past 2 seasons. And despite the struggles of the men's baseball team this year, Nick Romano was able to put together that full season and join a baseball team that was one of the best hitting that we have seen. He hit a .319 batting average this season. Nick Romano did, with 10 home runs, 41 RBIs. I mean, look, for a guy that was injured for so long the past 2 seasons, had a freak ACL injury last year, to see him do what he did this year and play a full season and do that was quite remarkable. So I think this is another very compelling award this year.
Nick, you want to add? That was a good description by Bryce, but I'll leave you get the last word on this before we move to the next category.
I mean, you summed it up pretty best. All I'll say is because of how long he was gone, like not just 1 season, 2, Nick Romano is my choice.
That you can overcome a serious injury there. Probably him and RJ Harvey too, but
it's the most heartwarming one when you really think about it. Like that's the one that you just have a big smile when you read about that.
Yeah. Yeah, just the number of games he barely played at all previous 2 seasons because of those injuries. So to see him come back and play a full year, RJ Harvey as well. I mean, considering what he did in this season, like he really broke out, and this was after injuries kept him out for a very long time. Is a long time, this is why I always love comeback player of the year, because there's some really great stories to be had from players like this. And
All right,
now,
what's next? Last one?
Yes, this is our final award, and I saved this one for last for a reason. It is the moment of the year. This is the award where we combine every aspect of the moment, whether it is off on the field, off the field implications. We put everything into account as we use for this award. This is why we save it for last. This is the moment that really, I think, defines this athletic season. So here we go. From the women's soccer team winning the American Athletic Conference regular season title, finding out they won it after beating Houston. For the volleyball team winning the American Athletic Conference title against Houston, that last kill from McKenna Melville to win that share of the title. From the football and the baseball team, we have John Rice Plumlee's double header, going from the baseball game to the spring football game. From the softball team, we have Cindy Ball Malone's fist bump after the double play at the Memphis American Athletic Conference tournament game. And then from the men's basketball team, we have Taylor Hendricks getting his name called as a lottery pick in the 2023 NBA draft. These are some really great moments this year, Eric.
That is strong there. Very strong category. A lot of ways you could go with that. Nick, what's your thoughts there? Where do you want to start with on that one?
I would expect, because of the recency bias, I think our fan vote might lean the way towards Taylor Hendricks. And he has a great argument for it. I mean, to hear a guy get called on for a lottery pick in any sport is incredible. But to be the first ever one was great. I mean, you can watch our live reaction to it. I'm going crazy. It was awesome. And of course, then you have us winning our championships. I mean, there's no better moment than that, because there's nothing better than winning a championship. But to me, the thing that I'm going to give my vote for is JRP's double play. And I'll tell you why. It's because, Eric, of you actually convinced me when I was listening to your broadcasts. When in the highlights, you can see it. He's driving away. And then you say, we may never see this again. That's why I'm picking it, because every other moment, arguably and hopefully, we will see again. We will see our teams win championships. Hopefully, we're going to see more lottery picks. Will we ever see a player play a baseball game, leave, and go play spring football? I don't think we're ever going to see that again. That is a once in a lifetime thing right there, and that's why I'm picking it.
Wow, that's pure pressure on me there. So I think you spoke very well. The volleyball one, I want to add some context to that. Obviously, they didn't win the automatic bid. They did share the title. They won that point. Obviously, Bryson, would you agree with this? What adds to that moment is the celebration, because it turns out, obviously, it's McKenna's last match at home. It's Amber Olsen's last moment at home as well among the seniors, too. That's what it meant, and it just an unbelievable match. The women's soccer moment, they were all getting together and watching as USF lost at Cincinnati, which locked it up for UCF after they had just beaten Houston, and that was emotional because that was the goal, right, Bryce? Because you've written about this with Delisle and the Kristen Scotts, the Daria Rajai, that group that's been there for a long time. A lot of things have gone against them, but they were able to get over the hump.
They were. That moment to me, JRP's doubleheader is amazing, and it may still win my vote in the end, but I can't discount the other ones. And this is one for me. The women's soccer moment really sticks with me even so many months later. And I still remember looking out at watching the team huddled together around that phone, watching the USF game, and I'm watching too on my phone, and I see USF lose, and I'm looking at the team and celebrating, and then I notice Kristen Scott. I notice her, I see her getting hugged by several of her teammates. And then I just see her kind of step back from the crowd, her hands over her face like this. I still remember that moment, and looking at that it looked like everything kind of hit her right in that moment. Like they won it. They have been chasing that AAC title for 5 years, and they finally did it. And then right as she was doing that, doing that, a couple of other players pull her back into the celebration. It was for a women's soccer program that has been very much going through, I think, a bit of a drought in these previous few years, to see this group of players finally get it done and finally reach the goal that they had set for themselves in their last year together for those seniors, 5th-year senior groups. It was just a sight to behold.
I'll mention the Coach Ball Malone fist bump. We all were there. It's a moment I'll never forget. It's an iconic moment. Again, I wish the broadcast would have picked up more on that. I wasn't calling that. That was a neutral broadcast. If I was in there, I would have pushed the producers to, give me extra footages of that. It's a moment I won't forget. That really was the turning point that week for that team. They don't win, in my opinion, the conference championship without that moment at all. It's something I'll never forget. Because then it led to everything that followed there. It's like I said, the comparison I would make for those that didn't catch the previous talk conversations about this. This is Josh Heupel 2018 against Memphis when he's raising his hands up to get the crowd going, help change the momentum of that game. It was the same thing here with Coach Ball Malone. That's why I think she's kind of legendary already, to be honest. I think she's the best coach on campus. But it was a big turning point. But bam, Nick. Mike, making a great case using my own words here, Bryce. I mean, holy macro.
To put this into perspective, the moments of this year that we have are the ending of a long conference championship-less drought.
Yeah.
The UCF volleyball's last dance. Basically, the Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders of UCF with John Plumlee. The Ball Malone fist bump right out of a sports movie right there.
Yes.
Like, right out of a sports movie. The Josh Heupel raising his hands. And then you have Taylor Hendricks and the NBA being a lottery pick in the NBA draft, what could be a watershed moment in some ways for this UCF men's basketball program. We kind of talked about this on the live where this could be kind of the kick that the program needs to get some more support to show that, hey, UCF basketball can produce talent like this, and we could probably do more if we had more support behind them. So I think that the implications of the Taylor Hendricks moment is also not to be looked over. So all of these moments, I have some sort of grandiosity to them, some sort of catharsis to them, that is intrigue, drama to them. I mean, even though this was our last year in the American, I'm sure there's going to be more amazing moments to come in the Big 12. I think our transition into the Big 12 probably could have been nominated had it technically been a moment of this year, but it was really a transition moment between years. But
I like to give them out to athletes anyway.
But in this last year in the American, there was still drama and catharsis to be had. There's not a moment here that I don't think deserves to win in isolation.
Any other given year, all those ones we just mentioned could have easily been the front runner to win this award, but they're all going against each other. It's pretty amazing. That's why we need your help. Make sure you vote for all this category. Make sure you vote for all the categories, because I'm conflicted on some of these. So you could help me persuade this. You could help me make your case. That was a pretty good case Nick made there for JRP, using my own words. Broadcast. How can I go wrong? I don't disagree with it. I mean, I did say it. How can I go against myself? But you all can decide. On blackandgoldbanneret.com. Check out the Banny Award nominations on our YouTube channel. Obviously, you have this video as well, but on the articles as well. Vote for all these categories, Bryce, and tell them one last time how they can be involved.
You can go, you can click on the link in the description below. If you're on YouTube, we can go ahead and provide a link for you guys to go to the article on the blackandgoldbanneret.com for you to vote on there. For this video will be on the article where all the men's categories are going to be, along with the other unisex categories that we just mentioned. And if you're seeing this video first then we urge you to go to our women's votes as well, our female awards votes as well, because we talked about how it was a stacked year for the women's athletes as well. So if you have already voted for the men's awards, go vote for the women's awards, because we need your help over there too. So be sure to either click the link in the description below, or if you're watching this on the article itself, scroll down and be an informed voter and go check out these players and moments for yourselves and pick, because you guys are going to be a big factor in deciding who wins these things. So go vote, be informed. Be informed, go vote for everything at all possible, and be sure to try to vote for every single award, because every single vote matters.
And that's our Bannies nomination show. It's been fun. Bryson Turner, Nick Porcelli. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. It's been a lengthy, pleasure, good project we've working on here once again. On that, check it out, blackandgoldbanneret.com. We'll have the Bannie Awards nominations where you can vote, as Bryson mentioned. We're also going to have the top 100 male athletes rankings continuing. We're going to have eventually after that the top 100 female athletes of all time, top 30 head coaches of all time. UCF, that is still lots of content, folks, coming on this off season. Just because there's no games going on, doesn't mean there's not a lot going on. As UCF now ventures to the Big 12, part of this celebration is all this content on blackandgoldbanneret.com.
And don't forget, because then, of course, we will also have the award reveal show where we will reveal all the winners of the 2023 Bannie Awards. Be sure to vote quickly, because the votes aren't going to stay open for a while. Haven't decided on how long it's going to be. Maybe it'll be open for a week. Maybe it'll be 2 weeks. I don't know. So be sure, as soon as you hear this, to go vote as soon as possible.
Fantastic. Well, that'll do it for these Bannies Awards for Bryson Turner and Nick Porcelli. I'm Eric Lopez. Thank you for tuning in to the Bannies Awards nomination show.